Yeah, I can just say that I created a sprint 1.3 file, which was actually approved. So it's in the project team folder. So if anyone wants to take a look, then it's there. But I mean, it has no extra. It's only the stuff required for this sprint. So yeah.
And it did pass the test.
It did pass. Well, at last.
It's okay. Let's leave the floor open then for every any question that people may have, please.
Yeah.
Should I go around the table so that
Has anybody already looked at the Sprint 1.3 requirements, and does anybody have any questions regarding those? Because we have been a bit more explicit, I would say, in this Sprint 1.3 as in the previous two sprints. We've also tried to include the tunnel-specific stuff. So perhaps also a question to you all: do you support this tunnel specialities in your softwares? Will you even be able to export such things?
Maybe you can be a bit more specific, Stefan.
Yeah, I'm already searching for the sprint description, just so that we have something to talk about. I'll share my screen. So you should see the Sprint 1.3 Markdown.
Yep.
Perfect. So I'm especially talking about the project type definitions, where we said a project shall declare an IC arch element type, which is a new entity introduced in IFC 4.4, and also the project template definitions, which the property set template is something that has been present within the IFC standard for quite a while. However, we have chosen to define a property set from the geotechnical part of the domain. So just a question to you all, if this is something that you can imagine exporting, or will you have problems?
Is my mic better now? Or?
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah, Quadri doesn't support all this, but we have to. An important thing with this project is that we discover what Quadri doesn't support, and then we make Jira issues for the developers, and then after a sprint or 2 or 3, and then we have this in place. So we have to improvise, of course, to make this happen now.
Good. And I would assume that includes as well this ability to link external data through the project data sets information.
I'm pretty sure that we have to investigate a little bit and then just improvise, I think, and then make developer tasks to fix this.
Good.
Yeah, I have even tested the one above there, project document information, before, and I noticed that the viewers that I tested did typically not have support for that, and that is a concept that has been in for quite a while in IFC. So
that's not an optional one, correct?
What do you mean option? I don't think that it's actually in, for example, reference view. I don't know. Sergey maybe knows more about that, but
you mean library information?
Document information.
Project
Oh,
document, yes.
Document information, I don't think it's in reference view. And coordination view, most likely not either. But let me check.
But I know for a fact from working with Karin at Trafikverket, I mean, they have lots of documents that they would like to hook up to IFC files. So
Yeah, it's not in reference view.
No.
Though very useful. Okay.
But anyway, we have had cases also in Sprint 1.2 where we approved files. I mean, for example, there was one they just clearly stated in the pull request that we don't support classification information, for example. And yeah, then I mean that's the way it is. So yeah,
that's one of the benefits doing it in a structured manner. You can just go and you know, go for the files and list in your pull request what you are submitting, and then we can look at the and look at the results of the checks, and if they match, you know, and you say you don't support a certain one, clearly we can proceed. But that also is good information, sort of, for structuring requirements for MVDs.
May we ask maybe Lee or Adam, since Adam you're new to the team, whether you would have any specific question to ask us?
I wouldn't say I have any specific questions. It's more that I'm just sort of catching up. So I've just been sort of working because Sprint 1.2 is closed now, right? So if I was to publish,
yes. But you can still bring, you know, questions that would relate to 1.2.
If I was to create a pull request, it would just be it would only get checked against 1.3, right? So just focus on getting 1.3 up and going, and then
the checker really builds up upon all of the sprints. So the checker will check all 3 sprints now.
Yeah. So I'd focus on the current sprint, and that will check the previous ones as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Can you check 1.1 separately, Stefan, and 1.2?
So the report is structured in a way that, you know, this part is from Sprint 1.1. Perhaps I can open an action from Lars or from Gather Control. That was also. So you have the routes are project route is Sprint 1.1, and then you have the checks from 1.1. Then you have the route of 1.2, and you have the checks of 1.2. And then there's a project route in 1.3, and you have the checks of 1.3. So the report is structured so you know from which sprint what is.
So if you put in one that's not got much of 1.2 or 1.3, you'll just get errors for that, but it'll tell you about 1.1.
Correct. Yes.
Yep. Thanks.
And this is, as always, found here in the summary part of the action.
How many 1.3 files have been submitted so far? Would you know? A few.
So far, we have, as Lars said, one from the team that has been already accepted and merged, and then we have one from Ivar Open that passes all the checks, that has been approved, I believe, by one, and we are, let's say, waiting for at least one more approval before we merge.
Okay, good. And the FAQ update on documentation was related to
the FAQ update.
Yeah, this one. Oh, Lars, you've already approved. Thank you. It's just I've introduced some sub chapters, so to say, and also since we're writing quite a lot of LFTM, if anybody has a question what that is, it's just an explanation of how to interpret the review messages.
You're in the social media generation, Stefan, so it's similar to LOL or
Yeah. Exactly. It's the GitHub jargon.
Okay, so no specific questions on behalf of this team. Kazunori, would you have any questions on behalf of the OYOS team?
No, not really. Not yet.
Okay, good. Not complicated enough for you yet, so that we need to make things a little bit more tricky for Kazunori. Lars and Stefan and Sergey, please. Thank you. And then, sorry, Guillaume, would you have any questions on your part?
Not related to Sprint 1.3, but I know that there was an issue with my Sprint 101 merge file or branch, and Stefan sent me a message telling me maybe we can do something about it. But I've replied to it, and then I don't know where it stands now. But yeah, I'm here for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is good that you bring it up. Thank you. I had a question that you have already submitted also a file for 1.1, right? For 1.2, sorry.
Yeah, I did.
And that one supersedes the 1.1, right? You've just continuously proved about the file of 1.2.
No.
Oh, so it's two separate files.
Yeah.
Then let's perhaps just after we finish, stay on this call for 5 more minutes, and
okay,
I can look at it.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thanks.
Unless there are no other questions, in which case you can jump into this to the benefit of everyone,
I would have one question to Jan Erik, since he's here, regarding his pull request. But but since it's Sprint 1.2, I wanted to first give everybody the chance to discuss 1.3 specific stuff. Also, since Lee's in the call, I think Lee's gonna also jump in on the discussion. It's regarding your last comment that the NTM, that's probably a Norwegian transverse mercator, I would assume.
Yep.
That it is not distorted, that a meter is a meter. I don't agree with that. So I would love to hear where do you get this information from?
These mapping zones are made by the Norwegian mapping authority, so we can use them directly without. Of course, it's a distortion by definition, but the distortion is less than you need to consider when doing infrastructure, even structures. So it's less than a centimeter or just some millimeter. So we can use
have like 12 or 15 or 20 of these.
I think it's 32, is it?
32, okay.
So if you Google this NTM, you can see that it's extremely many slices that Norway is divided into. And this is very valuable for us then. There is somewhere there is an overview map of this if you Google just NTM, I guess.
Okay. Mapping. So there is a distortion, but it's negligible.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, there is by definition, yes, except where the tangency takes place. But yep.
So these IFC files exported the way I did there is used at sites all the time these days. So I think this is good for us in Norway, at least.
Do you know the width of these zones? Like
if you Google NTM mapping. Let me.
I googled NTM zones, and then I got an image with a lot of very thin slices.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. That is very thin.
Excellent. Yeah. Yep.
1 degree zone width. Okay, that was my question. Yeah. Mhm.
So you can see on the map there, it's is it 32? Maybe it's less, but it's a lot.
Yep.
Maximum scale factor is 11 parts per million, which is
Neglectable in our world, at least.
which is 0.1 centimeter, so like 1 millimeter per 100 meter of length, which is of course very, very, very little.
Yeah, so this is a gift for us in Norway from the mapping authorities.
What happens if the road spans 2 zones?
You choose one zone.
You choose.
And the road budgets in Norway are so small, so it's no big issue.
What about if a tunnel goes across a very, very huge mountain?
Yeah, we have one that is 10 or 20 kilometers long, for instance, and I think they maybe then sometimes make their own mapping system.
Yes.
But I think the longest one goes in the same zone all the way because it's on the western coast there, north-south direction, almost.
So while let's perhaps also Sergey wants to chime in here. While I agree on the, let's say that this scale factor is negligible, from the pure mathematical point of view, it still exists.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And from the data modeling perspective, it's, so if I go back to your pull request, right? It's the IFC map conversion really tells that the model is in 1-to-1 independently on what the distortion is of the underlying projected CRS. So if it's really that the intention of the, let's say, designer is that the model should be placed 1-to-1 in the reality, just on some specific point in a projected CRS, then of course map projection is the correct way. But if this still gets deprojected when setting out, then an IFC rigid operation is the data modeling sound way to do it. But then again, it's not really, I don't necessarily see this as a decision of the software as to which one of these to use, but more as a decision of the user, because the user needs to know, is he dealing with map coordinates and map meters, or is he dealing with, true to scale coordinates?
I would go with map conversion
distance.
scaled and just explicitly state 1.0. That would be my approach here. I wouldn't go for map conversion, but I would go for map conversion scaled and then just state 1.0, and then everybody is happy.
Would you use IFC map conversion or a what's your new one? IFC
scale
rigid
trans.
It was 0.0.
I would go for map conversion scaled.
If that's when you're reading in data which is in a local coordinate system, but if the data is already in, I suppose which case we're talking about? The data's already in map coordinates, or it's coming in from.
The data is in this NTM, the Norwegian transverse Mercator coordinates, which are 1 degree zone width.
Yep, that's okay. So in that case, I think you don't have an IFC map conversion because that's really saying I'm coming from local coordinates. You would have an IFC rigid operation with 0.0.
I would also argue that, yes, although let's say, as Jan Erik has said, that the distortion is negligible.
Yeah.
I would still go for rigid operation because
Yep.
I mean, again, depending on what the user is thinking with it, it depends on what the engineer is really doing here. So if the engineer is thinking that he's doing stuff in local coordinates, then by all means use map conversion or map conversion scaled.
Yeah, map conversion scale. Yeah.
I think map conversion is scaled since you have scale factors above, and if those scale factors are in your, you know, in the scope of the project to be neglected, you know, you can document that, or even.
What? But we could.
Sure, yeah.
You probably then got to be careful here because I haven't been there, but I presume that the country there has a little bit of a hill in it every now and then. Isn't it nothing but friggin' big hills, mountains?
That's a good point. Yes.
There are
So
some
you
hills,
really,
yes.
you're not talking that map scale factor of, you know, in there when they talk about the scale factor of 1 at the central meridian. For this work, they'd be using a combined scale factor. And so if they bring in, it's.
That's a very good point, Lee. Yeah. So
if you're bringing data in,
the height reduction from I don't know Norwegian height above geoid is probably somewhere around 1,000 to 2,000 meters.
I don't know.
There's a big height difference also in even though they are 1 degree in one strip. So that would be a great inquiry for these documents. How do you actually handle those things? You probably can't have a constant.
Well, it's a tough one because if the map coordinates themselves, there is no Z value involved because you project down onto the ellipsoid. So when you bring in data, though, you then, depending on how high or whatever, that's when it comes into it. It's all horrible. It's all horrible.
No, it's all solved. Everything's defined. We just need to make it clear in the file. So this is what my request here was to you, Jan-Erik, which is you know, make it explicit in the file. So if the engineer said that he's doing this, he's dealing with local coordinates, then your file is of course fine or correct. But if the coordinates should be interpreted as in NTM zone 10 with all the D projection that needs to be done, then you should use rigid operation.
Yeah. Because in that case, if they are using that map projection, then your Z value is already going to be, I presume, in what's the standard height datum for that area.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of having explicit conversions instead of just a Boolean if the coordinates are distorted, so that you actually know, are these map coordinates, are they other coordinates, what the hell are they?
Exactly. Matters that it is documented.
So in the file, the height datum is 5776 NN 54 height, which is apparently some Norwegian normal.
Yeah,
or
50.
something.
It's the height system from 1954. In this case, we have a 2000 version that is better, and then 2000 from year 2000.
So as long as those map coordinates are proper map coordinates, which are on the ellipsoid, and then your height is then in that it's an independent thing, that height.
Yeah, it's independent.
Yeah, the question is, if you bring in data, though, if it was local coordinates, then you would get a map projection scale, because it would then take the height scale factor into consideration, getting it down to coordinates on the ellipsoid.
So as said, Jan-Erik, if if it's the intention that it is the sorry, if it was the intention that the file is in local engineering coordinates, then you get an approval from me. But this is mathematically speaking not true.
Yeah. Okay.
It is
I agree.
almost not distorted.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. So but if you add an IFC rigid operation in the file, then it's okay, right?
Then it's okay.
Yep.
Then you said that your file is also in map meters, in map coordinates, and then with all the almost negligible distortions with it. I mean, distortions from the projection, and Lee has a very good point that perhaps the height reduction is the bigger one here.
If you're coming in from a local engineering coordinate system.
Exactly.
Yeah. I tried to check with the mapping authorities, the guys that I know, if how they relate to these different heights in the datum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I presume they'll then just sit down and work out a helmet type of thing, because they'll know the actual map coordinate for a few points, and then your local coordinates, and use those. Anyway, but yeah, certainly ask them. I've never seen a country so skinny, so I'm not quite certain.
Lee, you also should remember that Norway is quite high up on the.
Yeah. No, that's why I said in Australia we have no hip mountains at all, so that's why heights I think would come into there quite a bit when they. But that's the height comes in when they're getting it down to the ellipsoid to get your map coordinates.
It's 2,500 meter height difference from the highest to the lowest point in Norway. So.
And it's happening quite rapidly, right? Also,
like
one big hill,
but not where we have the roads. But anyway, on the western coast,
you have tunnels there.
Yeah, we have a lot of tunnels. That's correct.
It would certainly come into your tunnels. We've only got one thing we call a mountain. It's not very high at all. Adam, how high is Mount Kosciuszko? It's only what?
I have no idea.
2,000 feet or something over there. Yeah, it's only a hill for all you guys.
But we have so much snow that you don't see the coordinates, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, but I will do some. I will do some
meters. I just googled 2,228 meters. Mount Kosciuszko.
Kosciuszko, yeah. Yep.
We have mountains higher than that.
Well, that's our small. That's the highest we've got. I mean, that's it. We only have one place, and that's why we don't know what snow is.
Incredible.
And then we need to come to Norway and try skiing then.
Probably scares the daylights out of me.
Okay, but I will check a little bit more about these mapping coordinates, and I will the rigid operation there. I think we can. I can put it in through the user interface, so it's no problem.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd certainly like to hear what the mapping authorities say.
Yeah, I will try to get in contact with some people there. So, that's interesting topic, of course.
Yes, indeed. Okay, dokie. Thanks, Jan-Erik. Do we take a few minutes to address Guillaume's question on one, Stefan?
Yes, I just wanted to. I think there was another question regarding the topic that we just discussed, or did I hear something? Otherwise, yeah, I would ask Jum to share his screen and let's see where the things got merged up wrongly. But perhaps, so you're welcome to stay, but with that, I think the technical meeting is.
And again, unless this is to the benefit of everyone, in which case. Okay. Maybe we could start with Just giving a brief update on what was discussed this morning, with the exception of Guillaume's Git hash issues that we leave aside. But just maybe to explain, for example, Lars, maybe the example of this Sprint 103 file that you have created, so that people understand what's in it. And maybe starting by saying that it has passed the checker. So the checker for 1.3 is in place and has been checked itself by Lars example files. So maybe Lars.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just created an example file for Sprint 1.3, and it contains exactly what is required from the sprint and nothing more. So and it's available in the project team folder under files if you would like to take a look. So it contains the a linked document, or rather metadata for a document, and the same thing for a data set as well. And just to be nice with our geotech people, we sort of simulate that we are referencing a GeoSci-ML file there, which then could be an external file. And we also have, there is also metadata for a project library. And then a type definition for an arch element type, which is actually a new entity in IFC 4.4. So might be that you don't support that yet, but if you would like to do, you can do that. And as I think we have said before, I mean, if there are things in sort of the description of the sprint that you don't support in your software, then just please write that in the pull request description. So we just know that you didn't sort of forget it. Yeah, and then also we just took a small sample from the property sets that we are working with together with our domain teams, just a small sample out of that, also to define a property set template in this file as well. But it's all in there in the example file if you want to have a look. And after a few rounds, it passed also the checker. And also one thing that we said, maybe I should share screen anyway.
You could.
So let's take that window. So we actually have one more file here for 1.3 that has actually passed the checker as well.
Congratulations.
I guess that's Ivar.
Ivar's one, yes.
Yes. And just show you also, if we look here at the summary from the checker, it checks sort of everything from all the sprints that we have done so far, and you can see that in the summary. You have first checks for 1.1 and then 1.2 here and 1.3 here. So yeah,
So
that's
the perfect pass.
Yeah,
And
it was a perfect pass, and I think that maybe this file contains things outside of what is actually required now. So, I mean, it could be that same file will fail later. I don't think so in this case, but yeah, it might happen. So what is actually approved is what is being tested at this stage. Yeah.
And out of curiosity, what was the kind of data set, if any, that was external data set, if any, that was referred to from this file? Maybe Ivar can tell.
I don't remember.
You were concentrated on the mechanic.
It was my data set according to schema geosciml.
That's fake.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean it's enough for this exercise. So yeah.
But again,
yeah. So I don't know, Michel or Sergey, do you have anything to add, or should we just have an open mic and everybody can say if they have any issues that they would like to discuss?
Don't have any specifics. Sergey, you?
I don't know about you, but I can't hear Sergey.
No, I cannot hear him. Switching. He's switching on and off. Okay. Yes, it is your mic. Great. Well, then we just open up for questions. Ivar, do you have anything that you found either a bit tricky to implement or lacking documentation? Though you've succeeded, but just in case, any suggestions you'd like to make?
No, I think it was okay. It's no real problems with the implementation.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
I saw that you had some exchange with Jan Erik regarding a topic that comes a little bit later on, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to discuss it now, or shall we wait?
I think we can wait. It can become a long discussion.
Okay. That's okay.
Should we ask maybe Artemis any other difficulties you might have encountered?
Not right now, actually. I mean, I talked internally with Jan Erik if it's something that regards GeoSuite and our files and so on. And I would like, for example, now to see Lars' file and see if it's working for GeoSuite and Geotechnics and test it. But for the time being, it's nothing from our side. I think only by continue working, for example, next week I might come up with something, but for the time being, it's quiet.
Okay, good. We fully understand you need time to, of course, investigate and and look at the things from your perspective and from the existing software perspective as well. That's an exercise that needs both viewpoints. Okay. Michael, I think you said that you don't have any particular questions at this stage. You are just moving forward.
I'm happy to ask two questions.
Please.
One is I think that it's been mentioned in the past about the cumulative nature of the checker.
Yes.
And so my understanding is that as we're going through Sprint Series 1 here, that it's cumulative across the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and that's correct.
Yes.
Is that going to continue? And no problem, but just is that going to continue to be cumulative as we get into Sprint 2?
I'm actually not sure if everything will be included, but in any case, I don't think it will be a problem, since you can in
Right.
the summary of the checker you can see sort of which, if it is something from sprint 1.3 that fails in sprint 2.3, then maybe it's okay anyway, right? So but actually I think it is Stefan, who is not here this evening, who sort of takes care of implementing all the checks with MVD XML stuff. So I cannot answer how it will be.
Actually, to elaborate on this, I have a question to Stefan as well, related to how are we going to be dealing with sprint 3.x when we will split the team into 3 domains, whether we'll have a big checker or a checker that would be delegated to each domain. Basically, that's for in
conceptually, I can answer that question.
Okay.
How this is envisioned, since I came up with the concept. It's sprint 2 is mostly building on each other again, but in sprint 3 we have a bit of branching, so we will be building the checker for each branch pretty much. So if you want to go and apply, I don't know, concepts related to voxels, we're going to do sprint 1 and 2 and voxels. And the same way we're going to do sprint 1 and 2 and the dataset connections, for example, and so on.
But what I mean, what about say in sprint 2? I mean, not we have pretty much gone through most of the stuff that you could need for project setup. And some of those things, like project units and geometric representation context and global positioning, you will probably always need, but some other things you only need when you really need it. So do you know how we will deal with that?
Well, sprint 2.3, I think, already goes into a bit of branching. So up to a certain point, we of course need to check for everything, and we're just gonna turn off exist checks. For example, we can do a check for declarations. If you have nothing to declare, we can just turn off the exist check and leave that one out. So or for example, we can do something like if it exists, then it has to have an element also. So not only that you have a declaration, but that declaration also has an element. If it doesn't have an element, we skip it, and it's okay. Probably something like that. But you know, this is not how that we already talked about how to actually turn off the checks that we don't want. But we can do something like that, for example, so that if you have something to declare, you declare it. If you don't have anything to declare, you don't. You know now how things are supposed to be declared. So, for example, for types, we could even go as far as checking if you have a type in the project that it has to be declared. But I think that blows the scope a bit of deployment.
Yeah,
we can do that for certification, obviously. Of course, Michel, you will be the one in the end to decide if we want to do stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically going the other way. So if there's a type, it has to be connected to an IC rel declares at some point also. So we can do it, but it's probably your call in the end if you want to go into such deep checks.
Yeah, I can see. But we will have an internal discussion on this surely in short time to come. Thanks for these. Michael, sorry, I think I did cut you off. You had another question.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was really helpful just to kind of hear that discussion on the first question. The second question is maybe a little more broad, and it's just more curiosity on my end. So, for example, in Sprint 1.3, there are some usages that are being, my understanding is being proposed as part of this current effort, like the IFC Arch element type. And I'm just curious about the process of how does that, down at that granular level, how does that end up being formally approved and accepted in a future 4.4, for example, of the IFC schema? I'm just curious about that process, and I'm aware that perhaps you've already kind of addressed that maybe at the initial kickoff, but just I'm just really interested in that process, and I feel like I still don't have a good handle on that. I'm just very curious about it for my part.
The interesting piece of a response that I can give you on this is that you are part of the equation.
Thanks.
Meaning that we are all trying to make sure that what we are proposing makes sense for the industry as well as for software developers. So as far as the industry is concerned, of course, our domain experts from our 3 domain teams have expressed their requirements. In addition, they finance the project. So and then of course, the assumption there is that what they express as requirements are making sense, and is properly documented, and so on and so on and so on. And then this phase we are in right now with you all is to make sure that we specify things a way that is implementable and that serves the existing software packages that exist on the market, given the current capacities or given foreseen capacities. But it's really a joint effort to make sure that what we do is coherent, consistent, solid, both from the perspective of domain experts as well as from the perspective of software developers. And then we bring this on the table to a so-called committee within BSI that I wouldn't see why will follow the recommendation that we are putting together in place.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I see the resources from Sergey, and it's on me. I need to read through those and just there's already really good guidelines in addition to your comments there. So thank you. That's more than what I had coming into the call. So thanks again for all the support.
There is a formal process, but I think that what matters the most, frankly, is that we all come together to say, yes, this concept makes absolutely sense. We have it in this neutral format, and then we make sure that it is implementable the best way possible. And to that extent, as Sergey and others have already said, there is room for improvement of the proposition that we are bringing to the table now, and room for improvement would be based upon recommendations, suggestions on your behalf, you, the community of software vendors and software developers.
I have a slight hunch that Michael wants to start his own project.
Well, we've been pushing for the addition of these geotechnical parameters, and it's been a campaign for several years. And Mick has been a great resource there. And I asked maybe a more direct question about it, and in an earlier call, and Sergey, you actually had a really good insight that was eye-opening to me. That well, it's not some cardinal sin to make use of custom property sets, and in fact, if you set that up kind of at the start of a given infrastructure design project, for example, then that's totally acceptable. So I don't know, appreciate all the insights, and like I said, this is more than I'm really grateful. This is more than I expected to get out of this call. So thank you so much.
If you have any questions on that, Michael, please come back to me, because that's sort of my bread and butter. We're doing that for not just for fun. as a matter of fact, with stakeholders.
Yeah. Indeed. Okay. Any other point of interest, suggestions, comments? Okay, then if none, we don't need to stay just for the pleasure of staying, but I don't have anything on top of my mind that I would like to bring up. So unless Lance or Sergey, you have anything else, we can adjourn.
Just, I know I'm really annoying with this, but just one statement before we leave. Please keep looking at the actions tab in IFC specification for new schemas, so that you have all the updates, because we're also fixing some minor sins, minor old sins that might still be in, and so on. So it's improving. It's constantly improving. Yeah, I see the 2 workflows failed because the download didn't work. I'm gonna, as soon as I get the download working, I will rerun these 2, so you get the latest one.
Yeah, and we have this. How you find this is in the FAQ, I hope. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe it should.
Yes,
it's the first one.
Yeah,
it's the first one,
is
as a matter of
it
fact.
this one?
Yes.
Yes,
This
it
one,
was
yes.
that one. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so all necessary links should be in there. So
Good. Good.
Yeah, I don't have anything more. So
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Another good set of exchanges. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll have another technical support call next week, 8 a.m. CET, 6 p.m. CET. So feel free to join whenever it works for you, and we'll be happy to carry on helping you.
Thank you.
Wishing you a nice evening or a nice day.
Thank you, you too.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice
Bye-bye.
evening. Bye-bye.